Hey y'all, it's November 3rd and this is Vicki Mitchell, an intuitive holistic health coach. When I think of November, I think of being grateful and thankful for what we have. And I wanted to share 2 recipes with you to thank you for listening and being my clients or interested in what I have to say. I also am doing this in honor of the Natural Health Center of Kalamazoo for sponsoring all my cooking classes this year. Now, as many of you know, I believe that when you see a recipe, it's just a foundation. And before you even start cooking or preparing a recipe, if you understand your taste, you can adjust that recipe after you make it once. So do you like things spicy or mild? Do you taste things with a little bit of flavor, being a hyper taster, which I am? So in my recipes, sometimes people think it's bland, and I say that's great. That means you just have a different palate than I do. So if when you make this recipe and it's too bland, kick it up a little bit. If it's too spicy, kick it down. And what I'm going to first do is give you a cookie recipe that I adapted from thepowerhungry.com. And this recipe is a gluten-free, dairy-free, cane sugar-free oatmeal cookie. Now, what I did is I added, she had sweet potatoes and not sweet potatoes, she had bananas. And that's another thing I teach. Don't be concerned in the kitchen if you make a mistake, because you can always modify it, and mistakes are okay. I often make them in the kitchen in life. So her original recipe had a banana. Well, when I think of a banana, I think of flavors that I like together. Well, believe it or not, with bananas, I like sweet potatoes. So to this recipe, I added sweet potato puree. But I am getting ahead of myself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the camera so you can see it. This is, I'm just going to adjust, there's my bowl. There's my fancy dancy mixing bowl. So the first thing I would do is preheat the oven to 350, and I would I would prepare my pan. I ran out of unbleached parchment paper, but I have this fancy sheet that you can use so it's non-stick. I like to use non-stick items on my cookie sheets because it makes cleanup so much easier. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have 1 mashed banana, and I'm going to add that to a bowl. To that, I'm going to add all my other wet ingredients, and you'll see that on the sidebar or the menu or the description of this video. And basically what it is, it's 1 mashed banana, and to that I added a 1/4 cup of sweet potato puree, a 1/4 cup of unsweetened applesauce, a pinch of sea salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, a 1/2 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice, and I just mix it all together. Now to that, I'm going to add a cup of gluten-free oats. And I'm just going to stir that. And at first it will look, oh, it's going to be too wet. But you just keep stirring it to incorporate all the ingredients. And it's just going to take a little bit. What I like when I bake, I kind of like, it's kind of helpful just to look at it and look at the texture and the smell. And don't be in a hurry. Cooking is meant to be enjoyable, and some of that enjoyment is slowing down for a quick-paced life. Now, you'll see that the ingredients are all incorporated. And what we're going to do with this recipe is just put it aside for about 15 minutes. And while we're waiting on that, one of the things I like to teach my clients is when you look at a recipe, what are some other ways you can modify it and make it a different one or make it your own? Well, I'm going to use a lot of the same ingredients, but I'm going to make a power ball. And instead of the mashed banana or the gluten-free oats, I'm omitting that. And to this recipe, this is sunflower butter, a half a cup, a quarter cup of applesauce, a quarter cup of sweet potato puree, a pinch of sea salt, and a half a teaspoon of I didn't put the vanilla in there, but I put a half a teaspoon of pumpkin pie puree. Now, here's my secret ingredient. You can put any type of protein powder in it. And what I'm doing is I'm using the Natural Health Center's Organic Protein Blend Vanilla. Because I think vanilla and sweet potatoes and apples taste good together. So I'm just adding that protein powder to the mix. And you just keep stirring it. You're just going to have to be patient, and you want to incorporate all the ingredients in. So you want to incorporate. Now you see it will look kind of wet, and the trick to making these balls is to let it sit a minute. And you can either make a ball or you can put it in. What will happen, I'll show you. Let me get my container. And you can either, these balls freeze wonderful, or you can just have them in the refrigerator. So what you do is you just take, I'm going to show you two different ways. Now, let's say you don't want to make balls and you want to make a bar. What you would do is, I would line it with parchment paper just because it would make it easier to line up and get off. And so you just can do little squares. And what I would do is I would fill this whole pan. First I would put parchment paper on it, and then I would spread out the mixture. But sometimes I kind of like little balls. So I just take a little bit of the mixture and you just start rolling it. Now it will be kind of sticky, but and you could mix it like that. Now you can make more balls or just make it into a bar that after you refrigerate it for a while it will stick up. It looks pretty wet right now, and it is kind of wet, but it will dry out and firm up in the refrigerator. So I'm going to show you some that I have in just a minute. But first, I'm going to show you how to finish off the cookies. So this has been waiting 15 minutes. And what I use, I'm a gadget queen, I use this kind of device. If you don't have one of these, then what you would do is you would just use 2 spoons. And you just place them. Now, maybe you want to add gluten-free, dairy-free chocolate chips. Maybe you want to add some nuts or seeds. Just make it to what you think would please your palate. I like them plain. And depending on how many you want, then that's how you determine the size. Now with this size, it's actually going to make 12 cookies. And what I like to do with the cookies, instead of having a ball shape, I just press down on them to flatten them out. And what you'll do is you just put them in a 350-degree oven. You cook it for 15 minutes. You take it out, you flip it over, and you cook it for another 15 minutes. And then you take it out of the oven and you put it on a cooling rack and you let it cool. As they cool, they firm up. Now, these also make a wonderful treat when you don't have time to cook, because you can put them in the refrigerator or the freezer. I often put half the batch in the freezer for later use. Now, I'm just going to go over to my refrigerator and show you some of the balls I made. So I'm going over to my refrigerator. And these have been setting for about a half an hour, and they're already firming up. If you put them in the freezer, they will firm up quicker, but I would highly suggest that you put a piece of parchment paper on them before you do that. So those are my 2 holiday Thanksgiving recipes. Now remember to tweak them how you like them, and thank you and have a wonderful day. To get more information about the Natural Health Center, you go to the Natural Health Center of Kalamazoo's website, or you go to my website, Mitchell.com, to find out about me. Thank you very much and have a great day. Just realized something, guys, a little out clip, I guess you could call it. The recipe made 9 cookies and not 12 cookies. In addition, the reason the balls look so wet is I forgot an ingredient, and that ingredient is a quarter cup of crushed sunflower seeds. You could use whatever nuts that you would want, and what happens is the crushed nuts actually absorb some of the moisture. So to the recipe, add that, and it's actually in the sidebar. So enjoy and happy holidays.